jury members of the non-feature film section of the Indian Panorama. As we all know, the non-feature film jury is an important section of the Indian Panorama, and this time it had 6 members, headed by acclaimed filmmaker, producer, writer, and National Film Award winner. Chairperson is Shri Oinam Doren. The non-feature jury consisted of members who individually represent various acclaimed fields, but collectively they relate to one film fraternity, that is the Indian film fraternity. The jury members selected a package of 20 non-feature films out of the screening of 242 contemporary Indian non-feature films. The package of non-feature films exemplified the capacity of the emerging and established filmmakers and to document, investigate, and also reflect contemporary Indian values. So now first I'll introduce the jury members. As we all know, Mr. Oinam Doren is a producer, director and cinematographer from Manipur, telling local stories through films connected to music. He has been a former television producer. His films have been screened at a number of international film festivals and have won many awards. The other jury members, Mr. Chandrasekhar. He is an award-winning film critic, senior journalist and media academician from Kerala. He has been with media houses including Malayalam Panorama, Deepika, Mangalam, webdunia.com and Amrita TV. Currently, he is an assistant professor with the Indian Institute of Mass Communication, Kottayam in Kerala. Then we have Mr. Harish Bhimani, who needs no introduction. He is a filmmaker, scriptwriter, National Award winning narrator, anchor and author. He has some 42 films and TV serial credit for screenplay, dialogue and directing, acting and producing. He is also known as for his distinctive rendering of Samay of Mahabharata. Then we have Mr. Manish Saini. He is an Indian filmmaker, writer and editor from Gujarat. A graduate from National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad, he has worked on more than 120 corporate films and documentaries. Then we have Mr. Umesh Naik. Mr. P. Umesh Naik. He is a filmmaker and journalist, has been in film and television industry for 25 years. He has directed 2 feature films, 12 short films and 64 documentaries and 4 web series and many advertisement films. He has also been associated with various industry bodies like the Central Board of Film Certification, Karnataka Film Chamber of Commerce, and also the founder of Karnataka Film Technical Training Center. Then we have Shri Rakesh Mittal. He is an independent film journalist, film critic, columnist and an author. Shri Sanskar Desai. He is a Mumbai-based filmmaker, scriptwriter, academician for 35 years. He has been actively involved with independent documentary and short film movement in India for several years and specializes on films on Indian art and heritage. So this is our esteemed jury. And now they selected, as I said, 20 non-feature films. So let's hear it first from the president of the jury, the chairperson, as to how his experience has been of the number of non-feature films that he received for selection.
The Indian Panorama, especially, it's a big thing for Indian filmmakers. The place where I come from in Manipur, if your films get selected in Panorama, then the government honors you, with shawl and special citation, and even the filmmakers, they mention in their bio that their films have been screened in Panorama. So it's a very prestigious platform for Indian filmmakers, and it's my privilege to select the films for this year with my esteemed, very credible, esteemed juries from different corners of the country, east, west, north, south. So we got about 242 films, out of which we selected 20. We were all together in Delhi for about 15 days and watching the films from morning till night. People think that watching films are it's a joyful process, it's entertaining, but it was a very painful process. We had also stress, and all of us were coughing, so we call ourselves the coughing comrades. We are all sharing medicines, all kinds of medicines, allopathic medicines, Ayurvedic medicines, Patanjali medicines. So, anyway, so yeah, out of those 15 painful days in Delhi, finally the film is here for all of you to see. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, actually, it was a delightful experience. But most of the films which came to the jury were not up to the mark. So it was very difficult to the jury to find the best. And somehow we have managed to get the cream of the a lot, and especially the inaugural film. It was you might have watched, it might have started now. It's a that much wonderful movie. So it was a very delightful experience to share experience from Harish ji and Sanskar ji to the bottom line of people like us. So it was very insightful experience as well, and very cherishing experience.
Maka, hello. 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 Yeah. Well, first of all, Maka Goa to Khub Mo. I love Goa. But the fact of the matter is that I think the films around the world have begun to love Goa because Goa is now home to IFFI year after year. This has been my fifth, sixth or seventh outing on jury, but the most extraordinary part of this jury was that normally in a jury, when you have to go through more than 150 films, there are sub-juries made. A jury is divided into sub-juries of 3 members each, which could have been done, which would have been very easy, 3, and the chairman would have access to any sub-jury. But believe me, all the 7 members unanimously decided that we should watch all the 242 films in 15 days, which comes to about 17 films a day, and that, to my mind, represents intellectual honesty of this jury. Yes, I'm waiting for a round of applause because this is an extraordinary circumstance. Another, that every time you've watched a film, you don't agree with one another. But instead of frayed tempers, members of this jury seem to think that yes, if someone's thoughts do not match mine, it means that there are 2 or 3 streams of thought. Nobody thought that I'm right and that person is wrong. And which is why I think the outcome of this jury is really an honest outcome, an artistically honest outcome. If I have to have another outing as a jurist, as a jury member, I'd like to be in the same jury with all these members. Thank you.
Mr. Manish.
थैंक यू वेरी मच. सबसे पहले तो मैं ये बात कहूँगा कि इस बार जो फिल्में थी बहुत ज़्यादा थी, 242 के आसपास फिल्में थी, और ये छोटा अमाउंट नहीं होता है क्योंकि आपने जब पहली फिल्म देखी होती है और आप 242वीं फिल्म तक पहुँचते हैं और आपको पता होता है कि आपको 20 फिल्में सेलेक्ट करनी, तो बड़ा टफ प्रोसेस होता है. और इसमें 2 चीज़ें थी, जो 2 चैलेंजेस थे जो मैं मेंशन करना चाहूँगा. सबसे पहले कुछ फिल्में होती है जो इमोशनली इंटेंशनली जिनका इंटेंशन बहुत अच्छा होता है बनाने का और बड़ा ऑनेस्ट इंटेंशन होता है. कुछ फिल्में होती है जो क्राफ्ट वाइज बहुत मैच्योर होती है, उनका क्राफ्ट बहुत अच्छा होता है. और कुछ हमने जो ट्राई किया सबने मिलके कि ऐसी फिल्में जो कहीं ना कहीं दोनों चीज़ों में बेस्ट हो या किसी एक चीज़ में बहुत ऑनेस्ट हो, तो ये सब चीज़ें काफ़ी हमारा डिस्कशन ऑलमोस्ट हर रात चलता था, झगड़े भी होते थे, डिस्कशन भी होते थे, कुछ सीखने को मिलता था। तो आई थिंक उसका आउटकम है 20 फिल्में, और बहुत अच्छा प्रोसेस रहा। और सबसे चैलेंजिंग बात यही थी कि इस साल ज़्यादा फिल्में थी तो कंपटीशन भी टफ हो जाता, सारी चीज़ें मुश्किल हो जाती है, बट इट वाज गुड प्रोसेस। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Mr. Rakesh Mittal.
Thank you. It was a very delightful experience. बहुत अच्छा लगा था इसको इस जूरी में शामिल होके। जैसा हरीश जी ने बताया कि यदि फिर से कभी मौका मिला तो मैं इसी ग्रुप में शामिल होना चाहूँगा। और फिल्में वाकई बहुत ज़्यादा थी और उसमें से 20 फिल्में चुनना बहुत बड़ी चुनौती थी, क्योंकि कुछ फिल्में ऐसी थी जो जैसे हम लोगों को लग रहा था कि कम से कम 30 फिल्मों की यदि हमारे पास चॉइस होती तो शायद कुछ और अच्छा होता, लेकिन वो लिमिटेशन था कि हमको 20 से ज़्यादा हम लोग नहीं चुन सकते थे। तो फिर भी हमने अपना बेस्ट देने की कोशिश की है। एंड आई एम प्राउड टू से कि जितना भी फिल्में चुनी हैं वो सारी की सारी फिल्में यूनानिमस डिसीजन से चुनी गई है, जो कि सभी को अच्छी लगी थी। मतलब कुछ फिल्में ऐसी होती जो देखते ही एकदम क्लिक होती है अपने दिमाग के अंदर कि हाँ यार ये फिल्म तो बिल्कुल ही वाकई आना चाहिए पैनोरमा के अंदर। दूसरा, हमने ये भी कोशिश की कि डाइवर्सिटी रहे। तो आप यदि देखेंगे तो जो 20 फिल्मों का गुलदस्ता है उसके अंदर 10 लैंग्वेजेस हैं। तो 10 लैंग्वेजेस को कवर करना 20 फिल्मों के अंदर, वो भी एक बड़ी अच्छी बात है। मुझे लगता है कि इट्स ए वेरी रिमार्केबल चॉइस फॉर ऑल द जूरीज। पर कुल मिला के एक अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस रहा है और हम लोगों ने बहुत लेट सिटिंग कर करके और पूरी मेहनत करके ये 20 फिल्में आपके सामने लेके आए हैं और आई होप कि आपको अच्छी लगेगी। थैंक यू।
Sanskar Desai.
Hello friends. I have been connected to the Mumbai International Film Festival also, and I've been on selection committees and juries of various different festivals. I can say for sure, and now really, that the system that we followed of everybody seeing the films together, I think it is a very good system. And in MIF we used to follow once upon a time, so there is no ambiguity, everybody has seen the film together. So that is a very important part, and so we can discuss at length, and we are all at par because we have seen the film. The films that we selected, as all the other jury members also have said, they were very, very diverse. So one is the today opening film is on the Parsi theatre, which is actually now fading away because Parsis as such are going away. They are very few in number, and the veterans were coming for the last show together. So that is a very interesting part. And similarly, there are so many number of films, and as Manish very rightly said, sometimes what comes from the heart, technique is very important. The craft is very important, but beyond the craft there is heart. So we chose, most of the films that we chose were unanimous, most, not all of them, and all of them we all selected it together. So everybody said no, ye to honi chahiye, this films should be there, because they were all, they spoke from the heart. That is very important. So I'm glad that I could be on part of this jury, and as Harish ji said, I would like to be a part of the jury with the same jury people because I really enjoyed the process. Thank you.
Mr. Umesh Naik.
Yeah. It's a wonderful experience I had, and I thank to IFFI. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Oinam, the chairperson, first question before the audience asked, I would like to ask you, what was the basis for selection of the opening film? The show must go on.
I think we have 5. I think my jury members has listed 5 films to be, and out of those 5, we are supposed to select 1 film. And I was thinking, like, the opening film should be such that it should set the tone for the film festival. it's not be too serious, maybe not too, not too highly on craft, not too serious cinema, a little bit of blend of, entertainment and meaningful cinema. So when I was thinking about this Parsi theatre, we all know about the Parsis, that they have been living in India for centuries, that now their population has it's down just up to around 60,000 plus. And we have been seeing some of these actors in the TV commercial ads every day in some Bollywood movies. But I think most of us haven't seen their theatre. But more than the Parsi theatre, it's the film about these aging veteran actors, which we have seen in Bollywood and TV ads, and also in theatre, and they are coming back for the last time. So it's a process of the theatre, and it's a very entertaining, very humorous. The Parsi way of life. They know how to laugh at themselves, which most of us cannot do. So it's very entertaining film, and it's about these veterans coming back for the last time. And in the process of making the film, two of the actors has also died. So by the time the film is finished, the two of the actors are already dead. So I think it's also a kind of tribute to all these actors, to these two actors, and also to Parsi theatre and this community, which is very less in number now. And of course, there's high level of entertainment in this film, because when people talk about documentary, people think it's very serious and that there's no entertainment. It's not, but this film is very engaging, very entertaining. So I thought maybe this should be a film, and all the jury members also, they agreed with my idea, and I think if you watch the film, I think you all will agree with me.
Another thing which I would like to ask is, after COVID, this is the first IFFI after the COVID, but these feature films, non-feature films which you considered, they must have been made during the COVID period. So any impact COVID had on the production quality or the content or the subject?
There were so many films about COVID, so many films made in the house, films made with different people on different locations, sharing about the lockdown, and films made in the crematorium where people are bringing the corpse and they're burning the dead bodies. It was very painful. And for us, after staying with COVID for the last 2 years, it was very painful to watch all those movies. So, but except those COVID films, I think the others were all, very well-made film. And I was surprised this time, because in my career as a filmmaker, I have never filmed from the eastern side of India, especially from this Darjeeling and Kalimpong side, even Sikkim side, where I have never seen a film. But this time there were two very good films, and the actors were all mostly young kids. So one of the films is there. It's called Clinton. It's made in Kalimpong, in the Darjeeling area. It's a very well-made film by this. And the actors were mostly kids. It's very well-made film. It was a kind of surprise element during the selection process, and it was one of the best films. All the juries agreed that it should be there in the festival.
Questions, please?
I would also like to add that we have 50 years of Manipuri cinema this year, and we have a very good Manipuri film also in this non-feature film section. And fortunately, our chairman also comes from that area, so when he approved that this is a very good film, and all of us like that film very much. So this is also a feather in the cap, I would say, for non-feature film Panorama.
Any questions?
A lot of people outside in our social circles seem to think that being on a jury and watching hundreds of films is great fun. Well, it is an elevating experience, but in other words, you could say that all these 7 people were taken on 15-day remand. Early morning 9:30 to 7:30, you could move out only for your biological needs. And the rest of the time, you are not only watching films, you are thinking about it, analyzing, jotting down, debating, and coming to a conclusion. So it was a 15-day intellectual remand, and we look forward to it.
And in spite of those pain we went through, none of us touched even a single glass of alcohol, which was amazing. I've never seen anyone taking alcohol. Yeah.
Madam, I would like to, give my comments on the COVID part that you asked. Because we as, I'm connected to the Indian Documentary Producers Association. I'm the president right now. We held, during the COVID time, we held a sort of a documentary competition. People facing COVID and how they were dealing with it. And they were quite depressing, they were not very good films and all that. I mean, some of them were quite good. But here, what I felt about we selecting films, there were a lot of films out of 242 or odd films. There were some films which actually were very good but didn't make it because, we could see that COVID probably had worked on their minds and they were, somewhere they lost out. But the films that we chose, in spite of COVID, they went beyond and conveyed. So, COVID was always there for 2 years, but they went beyond it and they could complete it and convey through their films. So that is very important. And that is why these 20 films have made the cut, you can say.
And I just have to add to what Sanskar sir has pointed out. See, many of the movies from the critical point of view, though we had a bunch of 30 plus movies to be in the final consideration, most of the movies were because there was it seems that there is a confusion between documentary and documentation. So most of the movies were made very amateurish, like a slideshow or something like that. So at the same time, on the contrary, on the other side, it was very well made, as Manish has rightfully pointed out. See, some of the movies had content, but they failed to present, and some of the movies, especially from some film schools and all that, they had that craft, but it didn't have any strong content. So some kind of a cliche still is there in documentary and short film making. And one more thing to point out as a critic, see, since it is digital, the lack of proper editing is actually seen across the movies because it was so lengthy. We had to watch one movie. See, when we say about the time and that intellectual remand, we were forced to watch a movie of the duration of almost 120 minutes. It's actually as good as a feature film. So what does it mean by movie editing? That also did reflect in the quality of the total submissions. So these are the observations which we all agreed to it, and based upon that criteria, actually we come to the final conclusion.
हेलो या एंड कोविड वाले पॉइंट पे मैं एक बात और ऐड करूंगा, जैसे भूतो न भविष्यति होता है कि हमने जितनी कोविड पे बनी हुई फिल्में देखी है इस साल में ना इससे पहले किसी ने देखी थी ना शायद आगे भी कोई देखे, क्योंकि वो बन चुकी है और वो हो चुकी है और वो उस टाइम पे शूट की थी। तो उनके लिए मैं दो बातें कहूँगा। एक तो ब्रेवरी वाली बात थी कि उस टाइम पे आप फिल्म शूट कर रहे हो और कोविड को आप डॉक्यूमेंट कर रहे हो इन सब फिल्मों में, लेकिन एक चीज़ होती कि उसी टाइम पे किसी ने कोविड के अलावा दूसरी फिल्में बनाई और ऐसी कोशिश की कि उनमें वो टाइम ना दिखे, वो टाइम रिफ्लेक्ट ना हो, तो वो भी बहुत टफ है। तो कई बार हमारा डिस्कशन इस चीज़ को लेके भी होता था कि नहीं, ये फिल्में कोविड टाइम में बनाई गई लेकिन इनको देख के पता नहीं चलता कि ये उस टाइम पे शूट हुई है, तो फिर एक आपका नज़रिया बदल जाता है। तो आप वैसे भी एज अ जूरी एज अ जज वैसे भी सोचने लगते हैं कि हाँ, इन फिल्मों को भी थोड़ी प्राथमिकता प्रायोरिटी दी जाए। तो ये भी एक क्राइटेरिया था हमारा।
Umesh ji wants to say something.
No, you said.
And one more thing which I would like to ask, you watched 242 films and then selected 20. How do you rate these 20 films that you selected as compared to the international content, the quality of editing? Of course, he says it needs slight uh, improvement, but otherwise the subjects and how they dealt with the story, the content. Yeah, Mr.
Yeah, so the ministry gave some guidelines to us. They said the films will be based on three bases: cinematic, aesthetic, and thematic. Because these films, the best of India and this year, will not only be screened in IFFI, Goa, but it will travel around the country in different states. And also some of the films will go abroad. So it should reflect the Indian, the status of Indian cinema. So when we are judging the films, we are constantly focusing on the cinematic, aesthetic, and thematic. Of course, it's very difficult to find a balance of all this in the films. As Chandrasekhar has also said, they were very good films, but very bad editing. The structure was very bad, you know. I think most of the filmmakers, they just got carried away with their subject, and some of them were very long. So as far as we try to live up to the ministry's guidelines.
So you can add. What did you say? Actually Mr. Naik wants to say is that with regards to subtitling, people have to also be very particular, because subtitles were not very well done, and there were a lot of lacuna. So and it is a very, if different languages are being part of that film, then if it is not properly subtitled, then difficult to understand it and go with the flow. So subtitling is a must. Good subtitling.
Some movies are not have subtitle.
Yeah, some movies also didn't have. Of course, we didn't see them because they were not according to rules. We were not permitted. We were not permitted to see the film because according to rules. But we could see that those films were pretty interesting and engaging. But we could not do much because they had no subtitles. So that is also one of the. Okay, thank you.
Sir, if we go by the definition, then a 10-minute long film or 40-minute long film, both are non-feature films. So don't you think the likability of non-feature films also depend on the length? Because the thing that you will show, filmmaker will show in 40 minutes, which they will not be able to show in the 10 minutes long feature film, non-feature film.
No, actually, as per the rules of the IFFI itself, it is being laid down that up to 70 minutes. Under 70 minutes, it will be considered as non-feature, and above 70 minutes will be considered as feature. So that is the criteria, and see, we have watched movies like that.
I think what he's asking is that how do we compare a 10-minute film with a 40-minute film? I think it's very clear when you take those three criteria in consideration. Finally, the cinematic experience, the thematic experience, and the aesthetic experience. Forget the technicalities, because technicalities go into making a film. It's not just the length, the duration, 10 and 40 minutes. It's also language, it's also subject, and subject to the extent that documentary and short are together. So the only one large distinction is non-feature. So to that extent, the jury's work does become difficult. You have to maintain your perspective that on these three criteria, how do these films fare?
Also, the most important part is the treatment of the film, which people don't really delve into, and they feel that shooting only interviews and compiling them, interviews or whatever. So that doesn't make it a film. There needs to be much beyond. People need to go much beyond all these interviews, and so many things are there. Documentary does not mean only interviews. It means visuals, and those visuals, ultimately they are visuals. So they should be interestingly weaved together. And in order to weave them together, you have to think about it. So there needs to be a treatment behind it. So that is what the criteria is.
Yeah, if you look at the international filmmaking scene, the documentaries has become very dramatic. There is a thin line between fiction and non-fiction now, which is like very engaging, very dramatic, very character-driven. But in India, when you talk about documentary, people are just stuck with the idea that documentary means documentation where you just make people talk and maybe show some visuals. So in terms of documentary, I think India has a long way to go, I think. From my experience in this festival, watching 42 films, I think we have a long way to go in documentary, except for a few very good films which is there. Otherwise, we have a long way to go. And but there are so many fiction. I think 2/3 of the films are mostly fiction, short films, and some of them were very well made, very good. There is one Marathi film, Rekha, which is like incredible film, mind blowing. I think it will do very well in the international, festivals also. I think. And we are very happy that it's there in the festival for everyone to share.
Yeah, hello everyone. My question is regarding the distinction what you were just talking about between documentary films on the one hand and feature films on the other hand. So I would like to know how documentary storytellers or documentary filmmakers can address the fundamental issue of the instinctive preference of the human being for narratives, for stories, as opposed to something which is based upon what we call as fact. So when we were talking about weaving the facts into a form of a story. So on the one hand, there is a need which is felt in order that some kind of treatment should be applied, as all of you were saying, in order to make the story interesting. But in the process of trying to make it interesting, there could be a chance that the authenticity is compromised, right? That you do in order to make it appealing to someone. So what are the jury's thoughts on it? And there's also the related question of the fundamental issue of business model of the film industry, which prefers feature films as opposed to non-feature films, if I understand correctly.
I think I'll start with this question because I have been working on a few films, and the most important factor in documentary is time. You just have to sit with the camera in the protagonist's house or follow him, just waiting for something to happen. In the feature film, you can write a script and maybe create some scenes, some action, to make it engaging. But in documentaries, we cannot ask the actors to act. So sometimes I just have to wait, just things to happen in the character's life. So a good film, a good documentary always takes years, sometimes years, 3 years, 4 years. Two of my films, they have taken me 3-4 years. They are almost in post-production, but it's taken me 3-4 years staying with the character's house, There was one film, I used to visit the character's house every day for 2 years, and nothing dramatic was happening. I was pitching to international forums. They said it's not, it's not engaging enough. Then I started staying in the character's house. I stayed with the family. Then I started seeing the real, the nature of the character. The character is a protest singer, but he gets drunk, he gets wild, he lies naked in the courtyard, fights with the wife. I start seeing the real life. Then all this thing that we are talking about, this engagement, character-driven drama, everything comes out. So it takes a lot of time and effort. And mostly luck is also a very important factor. Time and luck, I think, is. And if your film is taking 3 years, 4 years, then money has also become a problem. And in India right now, we don't have any proper funding for films. FD was funding, but FD, I think, for the last 3-4 years, they haven't called for a proposal. PSBT is there in Delhi, but I don't know, in 2 or 3 years they call per proposal, they take out of 1,200 applicants, they take 15, 20 films. So we have to depend on international funding, which is also very tough. Of course, a few of the good films, they are doing well internationally, like from Delhi, 2 of them from Delhi, which won at Sundance and Cannes, they're all funded internationally. I pitched together with them in the international forum. Mine didn't get that funding because my film needed more time with the character. So after that, I came back, I stayed with my character, then I started seeing the real life of the character in the house. Then I started getting all this, the human nature of the human emotions, the small details that we are looking for. So for a feature film, it's very easy to create because somebody has to write it out and somebody has to egg it out. But in documentaries, we cannot ask them to egg it out. We have to wait. We just have to wait with the camera and wait for things to happen.
So sorry to. So if the filmmaker has to wait, okay, how can we create structures and solutions so that the market also is ready to wait for the filmmaker to complete his film?
So we shoot as much as we can, and and it's very intuitive also. And when we shoot enough, maybe 4 years, 5 years, then we get something. Some voice is speaking from outside. Okay, now your film is ready. So we went to the editing table, and we structure the film. We write the script and structure the film. So that's how things work. It's a very tough, painful process, you know. Most of the time I was staying away from my house, so I remained unmarried for so many years because because of this. I was staying away from my house all the time. Thanks to COVID, you know, I had sons, I couldn't go out, so thanks to COVID I got married last year. Otherwise I would have got married because I was away from my house most of the time.
The story of you making this film can make a good film.
I was staying in the character's house in the mountains, in the valley, everywhere. I was traveling everywhere. And you should just stay with them, with the camera. You make friends with the family, just stay with them and just shoot.
Character, not your wife, right? I mean,
but I would like to add on your questions. See, there is a big challenge for non-feature film category because we have a combination of 3 different kind of films. One is documentary, of course, and another is short film, and third is animation film. And all are put together in one basket, which is non-feature. And their genre is completely different. Their character, their treatment, everything is different. So that is one challenge. Second is, you asked about this financial part. So I still feel that since we don't have any proper platform to showcase these documentaries and short films and animation film. Feature film can be released in the theater, but we don't have a slot in the theaters that in this particular slot only non-feature film will be exhibited. So people cannot see it. I feel very pity for them. Those इतनी मेहनत से इतना वो कोशिश करके लोग non-feature film, documentary, short film बनाते हैं, लेकिन वो लोगों तक पहुँचती नहीं है. आप मतलब मुझे लगता है कि पिछले कई सालों में जो IFFI में भी आई होगी या दूसरी जगह भी आई होगी, एक से बढ़ के एक फिल्में बनी होगी. हमने भी कुछ बहुत अच्छी फिल्में देखी है, लेकिन उनका हश्र क्या होगा आज के बाद, उसको कौन देखेगा? मतलब या तो आप IFFI का वो जो बुला लेंगे, उनका जो स्टेट टू स्टेट ट्रैवल करती है, लेकिन उसके भी बहुत लिमिटेड दर्शक होते हैं. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि कम से कम हमारी तरफ से ये रिक्वेस्ट जाना चाहिए गवर्नमेंट के पास कि एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म हो जिसमें कि शॉर्ट फिल्में और डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्मों को भी देखने के लिए एक प्रॉपर प्लेटफॉर्म हो, जो कि डायरेक्टर इतनी मेहनत से फिल्में बनाता है, प्रोड्यूसर डायरेक्टर, और वो लोगों तक पहुंच ही नहीं पाती. इसमें से बहुत सारी ऐसी फिल्म जो हम लोगों ने देखी है, मैं चाहता हूँ कि काफ़ी लोग देखें. मतलब एक जैसे खजुराहो के ऊपर एक फिल्म बनी है, उसमें मंदिर का इतना बढ़िया डिस्क्रिप्शन किया हुआ है कि हाउ ए टेम्पल इज़ बिल्ट, उसकी बिल्कुल छोटी छोटी डिस्क्रिप्शन उसके अंदर किए. पर वो लोगों तक पहुंचेगी कैसे जब तक कि आप उन फिल्मों को पब्लिकली एग्जिबिट नहीं करते हैं? तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा लेकुना मुझे लगता है, खास करके नॉन फीचर फिल्म सेक्शन के अंदर, कि वी मस्ट हैव ए प्लेटफॉर्म वेयर वी कैन शोकेस ऑल दीज गुड मूवीज़.
आपको जानकर खुशी होगी, जिस प्लेटफॉर्म की आप बात कर रहे हैं उसकी शुरुआत हो चुकी है. उसका नाम है documakers.com, और नाचीज़ ने वो प्लेटफॉर्म मैंने ही शुरू किया है. एंड आई एम रियली रिसीविंग इनकरेजिंग रिस्पॉन्स.
नहीं, दैट्स अ वेरी गुड थिंग हरीश जी. पर मुझे लगता है कि अभी भी बहुत से ऐसे लोग हैं जो कि डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म पे आने में थोड़ा सा संकोच करते हैं। हमारा देश जो है वो ग्रामीण दुनिया उसकी बहुत बड़ी है और अभी भी थिएटर में लोग जाना फिर भी पसंद करते हैं। मतलब एक आपने जो इनिशिएटिव लिया है वो बहुत अच्छा है और उस पर बहुत सारे हिट्स भी आ रहे हैं, लेकिन एक पब्लिक रिलीज़ का भी कोई ना कोई ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म होना चाहिए, ऐसा मुझे लगता है।
Here I would like to add one more thing. See, for your question, how to blend watchability with documentary, our answer is our inaugural film, one thing. And the second one is a movie on India's first hockey World Cup winning thing, that movie. Tank. So how it's being made. See, both the films are actually it's a bit long, but still how it engages people. And another movie is about three or four AIDS students, बच्चे who how they survived in Olympics, their Olympics and all that. It's a success story. So how a documentary, actuality or factuality, can be made at the same time entertaining. Without manipulating the facts, being sincere to the facts and truth, but how it could be engaging. So this point, how to engage people or the audience, that is very important, and that should be the aim of any filmmaker. Instead of, in spite of having complex formats and complex thematic kind of jargons and all that, this is which the short film makers or the documentary makers should focus on.
And irony is like good documentaries are like fiction and good fictions are like documentary. They are so real, like neorealism. They look like a documentary.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it's all about good craft. Like if your craft is good, then you can manage your documentary, your documentation in a. You can put it in an engaging way, like people will take interest in it. So ये चीज़ it's all about craft. Yes, sir.
Just one follow-up question, which incidentally you touched upon something which I was about to ask. That I mean, do you think that it will help the situation if we abandon the distinction between documentaries and feature films? Why do we even have these distinctions? We say that truth is stranger than fiction. Just like Manish Saini said now that there is the fiction in documentary and documentary in fiction. So why do we even need to have these two categories?
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to talk about that. If you look at world cinema, they don't have this category of fiction, and they just say, yeah, long and short. And if it's documentaries above 70 minutes, it's called feature film. If you look at Cannes, which one of our Delhi film I was talking about, which won Cannes, it's feature-length documentary and it won Cannes.
Sir, I was actually talking not just about a film festival, but in general, in terms of the films which are screened at theatres and other locations where feature films get played at OTT platforms. I mean, this conceptual distinction itself, probably is it time to abandon that conceptual distinction itself? So that people don't see the two differently. I mean, there's no two actually, it is only one.
Yeah, these are just old formats because like neorealism was about that only, like real characters in a fictional situation. And sometimes they call it docudrama or something like that. So it's just to make it easy कि इसको इस description में डाल दिया इसको इसमें.
But it has become part of the public imagination that these two categories are there.
Yeah, because
so maybe we should, as an industry, as people, as professionals, we should take an effort to abandon these distinctions.
No, but there is a fundamental difference, as he pointed out, that in a documentary you have to wait for things to happen. You don't make it happen. Whereas in a feature, in a feature, you make it happen. The writer, the visualizer, that's a director. They make it happen.
There also the point of fortune and the role of serendipity is still there in terms of, in any creative field, even in feature films, right? You cannot just go and say that okay, there is a point of serendipity also, right, in feature film also.
But there is one more basic difference, that documentary is on facts and real characters. Feature film, short films are fictions. So this difference will always be there. You cannot combine them every time.
See, what I would like to say is that, there is a very famous quote by Hitchcock, as people say that in feature film, a director is God.
Yeah.
While for documentaries they say God is the is a director, because here you are, so that is the difference. You cannot put them there chalk and cheese. There are certain things which don't they will never find if you make no distinction. Then certain topics or certain subjects will never be taken as for filmmaking. So what do? There are certain cultural things that are there. Nobody will make a film on. Doren makes films on music, in people who are creating music and all that in the Northeast. Who would want to make a film? They will make a film on a feature film, but the documentation that he is doing, that will be lost. So documentation is very, very important in a documentary film, which is not so in a feature film. So what happens to that documentation? Ultimately, if we don't have things to show to our next generation, third generation, then all that will go away. It will only be entertainment.
Yeah. And the
so
best,
that is not it. Yeah. So sorry.
The best part of a documentary is that we are recording time, we are recording moments which
Yes.
will never come back, no? So if you want to see Bombay, you watch an all Bollywood film made in the 1970s, you'll see the Bombay. How was Bombay in the 70s? So the best part is that we are recording the moments, the time that we live, which will never come back.
And we don't want to manipulate the reality.
Yeah.
कि ये ऐसा है, ऐसा ही दिखता है और ऐसा ही दिखाना है इसको. इसमें मेरे को फिक्शन या तड़का या कहानी नहीं डालनी है. मैं पर्सनली चाहूँगा कि मैं उसको कहानी या फिक्शन का नाम ना दूँ. मैं उसको डॉक्यूमेंटेशन का नाम देना पसंद करूँगा, क्योंकि वो बहुत रियल है और मैं ऐसा ही दिखाना चाहता हूँ. मेरे को कोई उसका एंडिंग नहीं चाहिए. मेरे को वो कैरेक्टर दिखाने, लोगों को उनकी बातें बतानी, उनकी कहानियाँ बतानी. अगर मैं किसी फिक्शन में 3 act स्ट्रक्चर में अगर मैं जाना चाहूँगा तो चीज़ें आगे पीछे हो जाएंगी. आई थिंक.
And
I'm not convinced, but I think we'll have to stop your role. Yes.
Okay.
So now we can conclude. Thank you for the engrossing discussion that we had, and all the best wishes.
Thank you so much. So welcome.
चलो, thank you.